Good morning and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert's virtual 10 a.m. spiritual conversations. We are the Sensational Six, bringing you today's topic, authored by our very own Reverend William Conway, called Falling Leaves. My name is Reverend Gail Morton. I'm staff minister, and I'm so pleased to be here and to welcome you virtually. If this is your very first time with us, thank you for joining. You can find out a lot about our center and how we're staying together and connected during this time of social distancing by visiting our easy to navigate website, www.cslpalmdesert.org. And if you're a regular to the Sensational Six, thank you for being here today. So in preparation for today's conversations, please join me as I pray us in with an invocation. I invite you to take a deep breath in and then exhale, perhaps letting your eyes close or maybe lowering your gaze as we prepare for this very special time together. I am so grateful to know and to feel and to just experience this one incredible, amazing energy, this brilliance, this beauty, this lovingness that is always, always present. I can feel this love everywhere. And I know this incredible, vibrant energy is the only thing that is going on. It is everywhere present without any boundaries. I celebrate this presence and I fully realize that infinite possibilities exist in this now moment and in every moment, and that the highest and best is unfolding for this time together. Please join me in affirming, and so it is. So each week, we'd like to invite you to learn a little bit more about each one of us. And we do this through posing and then answering an introductory question. And this week's question, authored by our very own Reverend William Conway, is this: if money were not an object, what car would you drive? So my answer is definitely going to tell you a little bit about me. I actually could care less what make and model of car I drive, as long as it's dependable. So I'm going to go with dependable here and say a Honda CR-V. Reverend Brad, maybe you can wow us with your dream car.
No, I'm similar. It'd be really fun to have a car with all the bells and whistles, but right now, I would want to get a Nissan Xterra white. I had one for 224,000 miles, drove it into the ground. I mean, literally, it was a few blocks away from the dealership and it died. And I had to get it towed to the dealership. Said, would you please take this off my hands? And they said no, but then I still got another car. It was just great. It was cargo space. It was fun. It wasn't a massive SUV. I used it for play and for work. And I think what attached me to that particular vehicle is, when you have something for over 100,000 miles, there's a lot of memories that go along with that. So I can feel the times I went camping with my son or buddies or my family, or did work in it, or just went on road trips, or just around town. So that's my car of choice for right now. How about you, Cheryl?
Okay, I'm also about dependable because my car right now that I drive has it just turned 180,000 miles and but you know what? It gets me from A to B. But if I could have my dream car, that's it. It is a Grand Sport 1996 Grand Sport Corvette. Now, believe it or not, I used to own one of these, and I love that car. It was great. See, it's got a great big engine, but anyway, it actually probably saved me from being injured pretty seriously because, believe it or not, Corvettes are built with a steel cage around you. So what happened is I got hit from behind at a traffic light in that car, and the guy was going 45 miles an hour when he hit me. So totaled my car, but I still miss that car. It was so much fun. It was a 6-speed, and it was the last of that body style. It's a C4 body style where they this was to commemorate it. So they built this. It was one of the racing cars. So it had racing suspension. It had it all. But I'll tell you what, I had a blast in that car. It was just fun. So, you know, and that's something about when you have a car like that, you really have to enjoy driving. And I love to drive. I love to just get in the car and just go and experience, you know, whatever's going on around town or whatever. And it wasn't really an in-town kind of car, but boy, did I love it. So, but now I just have a little Toyota Camry, which gets me from point A to B, and I'm totally happy with it. So I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Lori. So give us some excitement here, Lori.
So my excitement, I'm going to actually, I would get a Bentley convertible, and here's why. Not because I could care less about having a Bentley convertible. I'm not a real car person. Actually, for me, a Prius Prime would be like my dream car, but I would get the Bentley convertible and give it to my husband because he does care. And he talks about it. That's his lottery dream, right? Just at least for like a year. I'd be terrified to drive a car like that out on the streets, but he really would love to have one. So I would gladly buy that car and give it to him. I'd be fine with just, I'm good with anything. I really like, you know, Priuses. I have one now, and I would love to have a Prime because it gets 100 miles to the gallon, and that would be pretty cool. So to only have to get gas every couple months would be awesome. So that's mine. Dale?
Thank you, Reverend Lori. So I like some of you on the panel. I don't really care about cars. I don't mind what I drive. I think as a religious scientist, what I do need to say is, for me to say that money is an object or money prevents me from having what I desire, that would not make me a very good minister of science of mind. So I know that if I wanted a car that happened to have a big price tag on it, that I would find the way to have that car. However, I choose to use my money to buy clothes and shoes. And so, if you wanted to ask me what shoes would I have if they had an extraordinarily high price tag, I would say those ones that have the red soles on the bottom because they're very expensive. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm going to pass it on to Reverend William.
Oh, that's fabulous. That brings new meaning to when the rubber hits the road. You and your shoes. Well, for me, my dream car, regardless of price, it comes down to feeling. And for me, that would be a Z240, a Datsun. And the reason why is, as a young child, I remember my dad driving this car, and I was so small, I was able to stand up. And I know this isn't what you do nowadays, but heck, this is how we lived back in the good old days, you know, when you played in dirt and stuff. But I would stand up in the front seat as we were driving down the road to go see Granddad. So the memory of being with my dad and him driving, and then he puts me in his lap, and I get to steer, and we're driving this thing. It's just the memories of a young child, just enjoying his father. So for me to be able to find a Z240, clean it up, fix it up, and then to be able to give it to my dad, that would be perfect. So with that, yes, Reverend Dale has something.
Somebody had a comment, and I feel so, I love to keep our audience involved in our conversation because somebody posted a really cool, their dream car. And this is from Lesia, who actually, we know her through GTC. Many of us are connected to her. Lesia says she would like a beautiful, bright ocean blue Tesla SUV that drove like a limo, hauled like a minivan, off-roaded like a truck, and was easy to park like a smart car. And so it is. We're waiting for that to be created. Lesia, thank you. Thanks, Reverend William. Sorry about that.
No problem. Interject anytime when we have comments online, and we do totally appreciate that. And please interject at any point. That's wonderful. We love the interaction here online. So anyway, my talk title, or our conversation title, is Falling Leaves. And it was kind of fun because my fellow reverends were kind of going, where's he going to go with that? Well, buckle up, Buttercup. So what the idea is I love Emerson. And I want to start off with this quote right here, which is the opening line, I believe, to Circles. And it states this: the eye is the first circle. The horizon, which it forms, is the second. And throughout nature, this primary figure is repeated without end. And that was written back in 1841. And so my spirituality, where I come from, as far as my context, is I love nature. I love to see the patterns. And for me, that is where I truly see the natural unfoldment of spirit in its purest form. And it's my responsibility to see those patterns and realign myself with that true nature, but also having the conscious awareness to be able to allow myself choices. So here we go. Since everything is always in a state of change and motion, how do we keep from being stagnant? And if we are successful in that endeavor, are we more detached and isolated? And let me clarify and give you more context. If you're able to change with the times, there's people who are making their transitions. And some people get really emotional about that, and they're very attached. And if we are not religious, I don't want to go in that way. But if you're able to see everything in life as just a natural unfoldment, and you don't get so emotionally attached to something perceived to be as a loss, but no, it's just a natural evolution, is that perceived as isolation, where you don't care, you're detached? And that is a question that I think about. As a religious science, we know that everything is a natural unfoldment of spirit. And if we're not attached to anything, are we less involved in life? And that is what I want to us to talk about. And I want to know everyone's thoughts, not only my fellow reverends here, but everyone who's listening. I want input on this. I want to know what your thoughts are. So if we want to have a little bit of a conversation before I ask the first question, can I see a show of hands if anybody wants to make a comment on that opening statement? Otherwise, here's our first question. Does nature give us clues on how to live life, positive or negative? And here's my question posed to my fellow reverends. As a reverend, do you look upon nature to give you clues and insights on the world around us?
I'll go, William. Okay, when you were talking about the first part of it, about being stagnant or staying in a place, I think that is the thing that we have to guard against. It's not about being isolated and detached. It's about staying in the past or living in a space where you're just creating more and more suffering around the loss. So to me, it's a thing about recognizing the change and seeing. And I see that change from this question you just asked in nature, because one of the most fascinating things about what science has shown about nature is that when you see a leaf, the whole leaf, if you look at it closer with a microscope, then you see the same pattern of the leaf. And if you get even smaller, you still see the same pattern of the leaf. And so it's just like nature is so uniform and so concise that you have to know that when it's ready to change, it does, because it's part of the progression of knowing that everything is in perfect divine right order, from looking at the leaf itself all the way down to the most minuscule part of it, to realizing that that's how life is, that everything within me is already there. Everything I need is already here, just like it is in a leaf and just like it is in nature. Nature just knows, and we know, I think we know in a sense, our spirit within us knows in a sense when it's time to transition, when it's time to change. Or as human beings, we just wait till we reach the point of saturation and we can't handle it anymore, and then we decide, okay, now it's time to change. But nature's beautiful that way. Nature just follows the pattern and just knows that what we're seeing and what we're experiencing is just part of the unfoldment of the beauty of everything that's around us. And that's what really strikes me about what you're talking about here, William, is falling leaves. They're not, it's not really a death, it's just a transition into the next phase. And so it's such, I see nature as answering every question we could possibly have about the nature of who we are. So that's my take on it.
Oh, sorry, Reverend William. Um, I love nature in as the great teacher for us as well, especially with hardship when we're walking through hardship, because I look to, we've got a lot of forest fires burning up in our state right now, and it is very devastating. But the truth is that all those fires are part of nature, and it gives rise to new life, and it's part of the way things are supposed to be, even though it does create difficulties for us and loss and all that stuff. But I love how nature always tells us really about regeneration and rebirth. In the midst of what appears to be disaster, there is always new life that is being born. And I love those pictures that they show, like where there's all this ash and like burnt trees, and then you see this little sprig that's popping up. Maybe it's just a new leaf or a new life that's coming through. And to me, it gives me great faith just to know that I'm part of this whole organic life. And if I'm going through a difficult time, to always remember new life is being born through that challenge.
Go for it, Gail.
Thank you. So, William, I heard a couple of questions there, and they both resonated with me a little bit different. The first one was, since everything's in a state of change and motion, how do we keep from becoming stagnant? So I'm going to speak to that first. So that question for me, I think, is answered beautifully in that Emerson's essay, William, that you shared with us, Circles. So Emerson described that we're always in the center of our own circle, and our circle is constantly growing and expanding. So that means it's also changing, right? And a larger circle's always overriding our smaller circle. So there's always going to be different rates of growth and expansion for all of us, but we're never the same consciousness from one minute to the next. So everything we experience expands our consciousness in one way or the other. And one of the ways that we learn is through our many experiences with others. So my observation is that our experience of change and forward motion is always connecting. And so it's never stagnant and it's never disconnecting. And then the second question I heard was, what are the clues that nature gives us on how to live our life? And I love the answers that particularly Dale had just really addressed that question. And yes, for me, especially today, with all of our ecological concerns, nature gives us tremendous clues. But even more basic than that, if I really look at the foundation, nature for me is a perfect example of how to live life simply and to respect the cycle and balance in my life, just like nature respects its own cycle and finds its own balance. And for me, this illustrates the interconnectedness of everything. So, as spiritual beings, we depend upon nature, and nature depends upon us, right? We're all connected. So, harming any one part of this whole is the same thing as harming all of it for me. And if I can learn to live simply and in harmony with everything that's around me, then I feel like the whole of everything will benefit. That's kind of what I can do. And then as a minister, you said, how has my view maybe evolved or changed since I've entered this new role? And I don't think I view the interconnectedness of everything any different, either before or after the role of minister. I think it's just been the way that I've showed up as a spiritual being on this planet for a long time now. Thank you.
I'll go next. I found a Rumi quote that I really like. It's try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you, and do not worry that your life is turning upside down, because how do you know that upside down might not be better? I love that. And I think the key is that our minds, or at least our brains, want to categorize everything as good and bad. And it's kind of in our human nature to resist change. But really, change is all there is. It's the only changeless thing. I mean, that's what nature has to show us, right? That the only thing that is is changeless is change. And so holding everything lightly and not judging it for me is the key, because I can look back, as Gail said, through experience and see how my life has always unfolded perfectly. And in those moments where I've held on the tightest, I've suffered unnecessarily, I might add. It wasn't necessary for me to suffer. I could have let go sooner. And I think that's been my greatest lesson, is to hold things lightly, to be willing to say yes to everything that shows up on my path, which is part of my favorite quote, to everything there is, I say yes, because then I'm able to be curious about it, and how did it get here, and what is there for me, and I'm not judging it as good and bad in that way. And that keeps me in the divine flow. It keeps me always curious about where's that flow and am I in alignment with it. And one of the ways I know whether I'm in alignment or if I'm holding on is, how do I feel in my body? How's my energy? Is it tight? Am I stressed? Am I feeling, or am I, okay, what is there here for me? And holding things lightly and going with that divine flow and trusting. I've learned to trust. I mean, I didn't used to trust anything. I didn't. When I was younger, oh my goodness, I thought I had to fight for everything. But now, I can again look back and see how my life's unfolded perfectly. And I trust going forward that there's no reason to think that that won't continue to happen. One of our ministerial colleagues gave a talk this Sunday, and she said this brilliant line. She didn't know where she got it from. I see Dale heard the talk. You cannot leave claw marks with open hands. Oh my God, isn't that brilliant? Just keeping your hands open to receive, to be in that flow, and you won't leave the claw marks that you leave when you're trying desperately to hang on to something that may not serve you anymore.
Okay, we've got a comment by Kind Soul. I believe, oops, oh dear, sorry, that got covered up. Okay, Kind Soul says, I believe we can experience both experiences of attachment and detachment. Holding both of the feelings at once brings one to a deeper understanding of the feelings of loss. Anybody care to give any kind of comment on that idea?
I guess I'll start it off. That's for me. That's kind of spot on. And as I deal with loss of family members, especially because for me, that's a very big transition. That's a very big change. But I see both sides. I'm happy for the life and for the involvement, but I'm also on the other side of that, feeling sorrow for there's no more future experiences with that person. Um, but then again, as a reverend, I come back in just to know that everything just unfolds perfectly. And yes, future possible future experiences are changed, because even though that person is in another state of being, there is still a relationship there. And I really do believe that there's still this relationship. I always remembered it when I was a child, and my grandfather passed away, and before all of this. And I forgot how old I was, but this is back in Florida. And they told me that, granddad had passed away. And I said, well, I'm happy about that. And they kind of looked at me. And I said, well, because I get to see him when I go to heaven. And that, again, it's the intelligence that we have as children that, again, as I walk through life and I see nature unfolding, I just see the natural intelligence of children that have these, oh my gosh, moments that, where did that come from? And they just talk about it like it's nothing. That is what gives me feeling and God bumps and know that this energy, this light is true and is natural. And so it gives me a sense of peace of when I'm going through that transition, that change, be it very poignant, I'm able to stay calm about it because I know that it's truth and it's love unfolding perfectly. And I know I went a little bit deep there off the deep end, but hey, I'm about ready to go get my scuba gear. But if anybody wants to elaborate on that, please, I love you all.
One thing that I think that what the basic thing that I hear us speaking about is that there is loss, there is pain, and as human beings, we experience that. But one of my favorite quotes, and I actually used it in my panel talk, was that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And so you might ask, why is pain inevitable? Well, because if you don't experience that, that's where growth comes. If somebody I just heard something recently where if everything was always beautiful and there was never any loss or any suffering, then we wouldn't have the opportunity to walk through it and grow. So to us, it's part of the growth process. But the Dalai Lama is the one that said that, by the way. I just wanted to say that. But the thing about when I'm talking about suffering being optional, it's how long you allow yourself to stay in the loss rather than seeing that it's an opportunity for something to change and something to grow. So, like Dale said, which was beautiful, that, when you see that one shoot coming up after the devastation of a fire, then you know that life is just continuing on. And it's just like with an animal. When you see an animal, I mean, this is the craziest thing. They actually teach us how to live our lives, and they teach us how to avoid suffering if you really pay attention. I remember a dog that had lost one of his legs. And do you think that slowed him down? Do you think he walked around going, oh my gosh, I lost a leg. I feel sorry for me. I'm pathetic. No, just jump back up and say, okay, let's live life with what I got, And so it's kind of like that, like just knowing that if you look at nature, when you cut off a tree limb, it doesn't sit there and feel sorry for itself. It just gets busy and gets back to work, growing more, to doing more. If you burn a tree or burn a forest, then you see the life that's still there, that is still going to be evolving and changing and growing just like we are. And that's where I find my joy in nature, is knowing that I've never seen a dog feel sorry for itself for losing a leg. I've never seen any animal act like a human being will, as far as feeling, putting yourself in that victim mode. But, if suffering is optional, so how much time do you want to spend suffering? I'm not talking about grieving or loss from having someone you really care about, but just going back to something that happened that was a negative thing in your life. Every time you go back there, you put yourself back into the suffering. So it's not that you just forget it or just pretend it didn't happen. It's just coming to that conscious awareness of knowing that it's optional to go back there and go back into that pain. So what do you choose to do? Anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Lesia, hey Lesia, she's like right in our conversation here. She is just giving us the author of the clause marks quote that Tiffany had used in her beautiful talk last Sunday. It's David Wallace Foster, and he says, "Everything I've ever let go of has claw marks in it." So something I just want to just elaborate on too, and I don't need to take much time, but it's kind of what the last person talked about kind of this living in paradox, where we've got the pain of what we've lost, and yet the wisdom that life is continually rebirthing itself, and we are eternal beings. And just to be able to sit with both of those, I think is something that we as ministers are called to do, as well as to teach those that we are ministering to as well, so that they understand how very normal it is to be sad and to feel those feelings of loss, but to be able to carry the understanding that out of this does come the greater life, and it's part of nature that we go from loss to growth. It's just part of the circle, and how comforting it is to know that we are always in the cycle of life through nature as a reflection of all that that is.
Well, that's wonderful. I think that particular question had a lot of insights, and thank you all for your input, which kind of leads to this next thought. As the leaves are falling, are there any that you're trying to catch? Here's my question. Were there any situations in your life where you know you should let go, but you couldn't, or you found it very hard? That is what I'd like to talk about now. And as reverends, the reason why I bring these up is because I want people who are watching us to be able to get insights to help them through whatever changes and whatever falling leaves are happening around them, and to understand that whatever it is they're feeling, it's okay to feel like that. And so for me, again, I was able to, when it comes to transitions and relationships and stuff like that, of family members making their transitions, it seems like I've had a good, I feel like it's not been a very difficult for me to let go. Of course, I go through that grieving process of the loss and stuff like that, and that's normal. But to actually stop living life because of this particular event, or this grandmother, this grandfather, is on a different level, it doesn't resonate with me. But it may resonate, and some of our viewers may be going through that. And so I want to again talk about how did we go through, and give clues and stories to help someone go through this process of dealing with falling leaves in their life. And so I open the forum up to my fellow colleagues.
I'll grab onto that. Thank you, Reverend William. It's funny how the topic, more than a few times so far, we've talked about loved ones and the loss of them. So I'll refer to that in grabbing a hold, letting go, seeing the opportunities, knowing life is perfectly unfolding along those lines. I don't even want to throw the word etc. in there, because I think that's, for me right now, that's almost like disrespectful, because it's so many amazing things that are in the process that etc. doesn't do it justice. And for me, I remember when my grandfather passed away. He was my last grandparent, and also my favorite grandparent. No problem saying that. And I remember being very sad. And I remember, at least I chose for a week, every day consciously letting myself grieve at whatever level I wanted to. So if I was in the middle of, Target, and my fiance at the time, we walked by fishing poles, and my grandpa was the one that took me fishing, I would just cry right then and there, and to really be present with it. I was thankful to have had, sorry, my camera's bouncing here. I was thankful to have had enough years of science and mind underneath my belt to not label anything bad. Doesn't mean I have to like it. Doesn't mean I think it's okay for you to keep doing it or anything along those lines. But I was clear that it's God just expressing. And if my pain is already too much what it is, if I point it and say that's wrong, I'm just making my experience worse. So how can I embrace that experience of whether it's grief or pain, or the leaf that hasn't fallen yet, or the leaf that did fall and I missed it, how can I just say it is what it is? You know, I live with it, so that's probably why you hear it brought up a lot. Being with my parents, my mom is constantly either talking about the past or a lot talking about the future, whether it's in a couple hours we're going to do something or we need to work on something or whatever. Um, and it makes her anxious inside. So we're always working on how can we and come from that place of just it is what it is. How can I be so present with it, whether it's joy or grief, to feel a fuller experience of God right where I am? And that will help me say the right thing to someone who's grieving with me, help me move through it, help me handle it, help me get better, help me let it go. If I can, you know, do a little more of that with the infinite in the present of the experience.
Well, I can share that where I started, I I held on to everything. Oh my gosh, what a mess I was because I just gathered things that didn't serve me and they all had claw marks on them. It was not a pretty picture. And I'm thinking about like what changed. And I think it was simply one day I realized I had a choice. And up until that point, I don't think I knew I had a choice. I thought things just were what they were. And I didn't know I had anything to do with them. I really didn't. And that moment of getting that, "Oh, I'm at choice here. I'd like Cheryl said, Reverend Cheryl, I don't have to suffer. I could choose something else. I, in that moment, or very quickly, let go of everything. Like I cleared my entire deck the second I saw that and had a completely, fresh life before me. And everything was like emptied out in that moment. And then I got to put back the pieces and it was developing from there. It was developing a skill set. So the first part was understanding I was at choice, and then beginning to learn skills that I gathered over the years, particularly through Science of Mind, but also through my coaching practice, to hold things again lightly and to make conscious choices. But it is a skill set, it's a muscle, it's a mental muscle, right? We have those neural pathways, and my neural pathways they had a traffic jam. They were just jammed up. And I had to work to free that up and to create a new neural pathway that said, I'm always at choice. There's always something I can choose. And maybe I can't choose what's happening in the world, but I always choose my reaction to it. And so it began, and it took a long time, but beginning to um, forge that new neural pathway until one day you hit again that critical mass and boom, there's your new way of being. And you can't even force yourself to go back to the old way because it feels uncomfortable and ridiculous. Really, it feels silly to me. If I even try to go in that direction, I'm like, oh no, no, thank you. But again, that's understanding. I can say no, thank you to that and make a different choice.
We have a comment that's actually very beautiful, and then I have a holy confession after that. Annette says, I think it's a blessing to gather or really touch the falling leaf and to experience its state before moving with it. And that's kind of beautiful because it's really being present to the whole the whole um, experience of the loss. I mean, to be present to it, to each moment of it, because then we really take it in and can gather whatever wisdom or enlightenment from what we're experiencing. That, Annette, that was beautiful. Thank you. So my holy confession. So when William sent us these questions in advance, and I jotted down some notes, I said, okay, I gotta do my reveal here. He asked us the situations in life that we've had the claw marks, and mine were not letting go of toxic romantic relationships. I held on to them so tightly, and the reason I don't do that now. The difference, as Lori said, what's the difference now? It's because I know who I am, first of all. I know that I'm the allness of God. And I also know that this is a universe that is abundant, and my consciousness is a reflection of whatever I want it to be. So if I'm knowing wholeness, then I'm going to have wholeness in life. So I don't need to be in relationships that I'm having to compromise myself or that are unhealthy. So for me, all of this stuff about being able to let go is to understand that our universe is always plentiful, and it's our consciousness that says it's not. So my work is to work on my consciousness to see the truth, and then I'm able to let go of things that really don't serve anymore. So there's my confession.
I just want to share again, one of my favorite expressions is the space for the thing that you want is being taken up by the thing that you settled for. Somebody said that to me early on in Science of Mind, my first church, probably my first year, and it just went, oh my goodness, I could have had a V8. Something in me shifted in that moment, like I got it. All this energy that I'm putting towards the things I don't want are taking up all my bandwidth, and I've got nothing left for the things that I do want.
Okay, I have to just share this really quickly. In Texas, what you say is if somebody else's pickup truck is in your driveway, you don't have room for anybody else. So it's like picking who you want in your life. And I'm not saying that we are negative about people or anything. I call it spiritual discernment. I heard that from Joe. Making the decision what I want in my life, and knowing that I have the volition, I have the free will to decide who's going to be in my life and who's not. And it's really odd once you start getting into that space of knowing who you are and the truth of who you are. The people that don't belong in your life just kind of fall away. It's not like you have to shove them out or anything. It's just not in your consciousness any longer. So it's kind of freeing when you can let go. That's the hardest part, letting go. And not thinking that this is who I am, this is who I'm always going to be. No, not true. You get to decide, you get to choose. And I love that. I love that about our life. We have free will. We're not little puppets up here dancing to God's tune. We are making our life, we are creating what is occurring in our life right now in this minute.
So I'd like to piggyback a little bit on Brad's comment earlier, just because I really loved it. And I think it could merit a little more, just a little more expansion maybe. So I really see beauty in the leaves of my life that are falling. And where that comes from for me is very similar to what Brad said, is that no matter what is happening, no matter what leaf is falling or new bud is arising, the full experience of God, of spirit, of divine energy, whatever you want to call this magnificent force, is always right where you are. No matter what, it's always right where you are. And that kind of reminds me of a concept in Buddhism that's called the Bardo. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's the liminal space between experiences. And many people understand the Bardo to simply be the place between death and rebirth, but it really isn't. Much more broadly, the Bardo is just that liminal space between two experiences. So everything you know has a beginning and an end. Cheryl and I love to meet for breakfast, and we have a great time. And there's a beginning, and then there's an end to our time at breakfast. And since our breakfast time always has an end, that Bardo is the time before something else begins. So everything we do, even the beginning and end of Sensational 6, there is a Bardo. So I see the Bardo, or my falling leaves, as making a place for what comes next, what is new, what now needs to emerge. And in saying that, I don't in any way diminish that there can be a loss associated with, or losses with, leaves falling. Saying goodbye to something is oftentimes a great loss. And what really helps me in that process is remembering that saying goodbye is also a really important process that clears the space for something new. It does not in any way, however, diminish that loss or those feelings of loss. And if you notice when people are grieving, particularly when they've gone through a great loss, that grief comes in waves. It doesn't just come in big blocks and remain, it comes in waves. So there's that great loss, and there's that remembering that there's also a space blossoming for something new. And again, for me, it comes back to the fact that what I know for sure is that that full experience of God, of spirit, of divine energy is exactly where you are, no matter what you're experiencing, if it's a leaf falling or if it's a bud that is emerging.
I just want to piggyback on that too, Gail, because when Reverend Gail, I, for gosh, the past like 12 or so years, I had both my parents get very ill and pass away. And what kept me really solid, watching the deterioration and all of that, being able to watch it and be present to it and be okay with it, was knowing that even though something is deteriorating and leaving, that wholeness of God, that wholeness of we are, is always present, and to lean into that. And it's again, it's being able to like experience two worlds at the same time, honoring both, being present to both, and being okay with both. And I think as ministers, we really teach people, because they come to us, most people come to us when there's something difficult going on in their lives. And so for us to hold them in that, knowing that you are, yes, like I love what you said, Gail, there's a beginning and an end, whether it's breakfast or whether it's a life or it's a sensational six, there is a beginning and an end. And even though something is ending, we are always in the center of the eternality of life. Like Emerson teaches us in circles, we're always in the center of the circle. And so to be able to have that wisdom allows us not to feel or know or think that we're empty, and that when we lose something, there's nothing left. Because even when we lose things from life, there's a whole universe left of good that is there for us to experience, and we will continue to experience, because with every ending, there is a new beginning. And just to always be mindful of that and honor our emotions through it all.
Well, that's wonderful. I know that we're starting to get to our time. So I want to have this thought. I'm going to take a few minutes. At the beginning of our time here, I talked about falling leaves and not being attached. And are you more isolated because you're not attached? And here's a thought that I have that I'd like to share with you and to everyone who's listening. For me, the idea of allowing things, not getting attached to things in a specific moment, actually, for me, it makes me feel more involved, more attached to life. By allowing life to unfold without the attachments of an event, I get to see the totality of life expressing, of spirit, God, the universe, energy, whatever you want to call it. I actually get to see it. And so the first question, positive or negative, it, to me, coming from that sense of knowing that it's life unfolding, whether it's positive or negative, I know I'm on one side of the coin or the other, but I'm still the coin, regardless of what side I'm on in expressing or dealing with any given situation. I am the center of that universe, like Gail talked about when she elaborated on circles, is you are the center of your circle. And when Dale talked about after the fire, the ashes and that sprig, I love mythology. And the phoenix is one of the spiritual animals or mythological animals that I really love. And I just realized we are all phoenixes. Life is the phoenix. It's not a mythical creature that's, oh, it's nice. God is the phoenix. You are the phoenix. Whatever leaf has fallen has created the ash. From that, that sprig, that green leaf, that new life. The end is the beginning. The alpha is the omega. You know, life is always in a constant state of flow. And so I and my fellow reverends here, we are here not just to talk about ourselves and our own experiences, but we want our own experiences to be clues or ideas to help you through whatever it is you're going through. And so when Gail ended with beauty with the falling leaves, that is exactly the last question I have right here. Is there beauty in the leaves falling? And yes, because Reverend Gail, hit it right, the nail on the head. It is the beginning of something new. And if you can see that falling leaf as your starting point, yes, grief is natural. But like Lori was saying, you don't have to hold on to it. Allow that to be the fuel that helps you and propels you into that new experiencing, saying yes to life. And that is the whole totality of my questions and my talk here today, is to allow you to live life. And no matter what's going on socially or on a family level, it doesn't matter what that circle is. There's always a beginning, there's always an end, because there's only now. There's only now. And when you realize that, then again, like Reverend Lori said, you have the choice of what you want to experience. And so I want to thank everyone here, all my reverends. And I know that Lori is setting up for the ending and stuff like that, but please, last thoughts. I see Reverend Dale has got her.
I got two more comments. I want to honor our people who are chiming in. So Lesia said regarding Reverend Lori's quote from a little bit back, the price of the life you want is the life you have. So that's her statement on that. I think Reverend Lori, that was when you were talking about if you've got stuff inside your life that you don't like, it prevents I'm sorry, it was witty what you said and I'm like ruining it. Anyway. It's the end of the show. What can I say? Kind soul, and I know who kind soul is because he gave it away with this quote. Richard Rohr, who, by the way, I must say is a great mystic. He's a Catholic mystic, and he writes books that are very relevant to what we're going through right now. But this is a quote. He says, all great spirituality is about what we do with our pain. So yes, yes, and yes, it's what we do with it. And I also want to say one more thing. Nature abhors a vacuum. So whatever leaves our life, something good is going to come in if we know something good is going to come in. So I don't want us to forget that truth. So that's all. That's it for the comments, Reverend Lori. Thank you.
Well, thank you for calling me witty. So all else is forgiven. So this has been awesome. Thank you, Reverend William, for a wonderful topic. It was really well thought out, and I just enjoyed what everyone brought to the table today. If you all enjoyed watching today, we ask you to find the donate button somewhere in the vicinity, right, left, up, down. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's red. So if you could just click on that, and any donation really helps us right now. And it's a way of letting us know you're enjoying what we're doing. So even if it's $1 or $2, it's just saying, yes, I really love this show and I'm here and I enjoyed myself and I want to give you guys a thumbs up or a Benjamin's up. So we would really appreciate that. And we have a couple of announcements, a couple of things coming up. Tomorrow, Reverend Charles will be interviewing Charles Holt, who is an amazing singer. I have heard him many times at my previous center, and wow, he is something else. So I'm sure that's going to be a great conversation. And on Sunday, he's going to be our guest singer. So perfect timing. Come find out a little bit about him, and then you can listen to him on Sunday. And I'm sure he will just blow you away with his talent. And of course, on every Friday, we have Reverend Charles' Life on Love. So invite you to tune into that. And every day at what time, gang? 10. I got a great picture of us doing this last week. It was so cute. So tune in every day at 10 for meditation, for our service, for all our different shows. Monday through Friday are live. And, we're here for you. We're here for you on Sundays after service. We have a virtual prayer room. The link is on the website. And we have amazing practitioners that show up every week and just wait for someone to come in and pray so they can pray with you. So please come. We don't want them just sitting around. We want to put them to work. For all of us, it's what we love to do. So you are giving us a gift by showing up on Sundays to ask for prayer. So that is at 11 o'clock following service. And then we still have Power of Eight going on, and you can sign up through that on the website. And we have noon, 6, and 8. 8, yes. So please sign up. We're here to facilitate that. And it is an amazing experience. I'm blessed to be one of the facilitators. And I just enjoy it so much. I still can't figure out why is it so much more powerful than any other meditation I've ever done, but it is. So please jump on that. And I think that's about it. Did I forget anything, gang, or am I good? All right, I'm good.
Did you
So let's
talk about the social aids?
Oh, I forgot the social aids. So we also have the social aids, which Reverend Cheryl and Reverend William are hosting on Thursdays. And you can sign up for that through the website. Reverend Cheryl, did you want to say anything about that before we close? Give a little plug.
Yeah, well, it's William and I are just having fun. That's all it is. And I can tell you, last week one of the questions was about being reincarnation. If you could come back as anything, what would you come back as? And several people said they'd come back as who they are right now, which means that's beautiful. That means they really
Wow.
love themselves. That's great. But one lady said she'd come back as herself, but she wanted longer legs. And I said, be careful with that. You could end up being a giraffe, so just
So obviously they have a wonderful time in social aid. So
just a
just,
blast.
hop on. It's just for fun. That's all it is. It's community connecting and having a good time. And so please join Reverend Cheryl and Reverend William for that.
Yeah.
And
One more
one
thing.
more?
I've
Okay.
been told that our donate button is the same color as your blouse, Reverend Lori. It's
Oh,
blue.
okay.
And it's
Turquoise.
below. It's turquoise
Okay.
and it's below.
Turquoise and below. Thank you for that input. I can't see it from my screen. So thank you. All right. Well, I just invite you all to let's take a collective breath and just anchor this whole time together into our cellular being. And what I know is there was a divine energy flowing through this sensational six today and through each person watching and each person that will watch in the future, because it is simply nature, that divine flow unfolding perfectly, leaves falling and buds blooming, always in this perfect and beautiful balance. And I know this is the truth of life because I see it everywhere. I see it in nature. I feel it in my own inhale and exhale. Everything in perfect balance. Life unfolding with beauty, with passion, with love. This is what I know, and I am grateful. I am grateful for this time together and for each and every person who contributed to us today with their comments, with their questions, and just simply by being out there in the cyber world, knowing that we are all one. I can release this word as law, knowing it's done, and so it is. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.